was just supposed to be a routine late-night trip to Walmart to pick up a few groceries. As I wandered the bright yet eerily vacant aisles at nearly midnight on a Tuesday, I had no idea the ordinary was about to turn terrifying. I was passing by the hair care section when I suddenly had the uneasy sense of being watched. I quickly turned, expecting to spot a fellow restless customer or bored employee nearby, but there was no one. Still, the prickly feeling on the back of my neck persisted. I tried to shrug it off and focus on the items on my list. In the medicine aisle, I could hear soft footfalls in a neighboring row. They seemed to shuffle along at the same pace as me. When I stopped, the steps halted too. My pulse quickened as I rounded the corner, only to again find myself alone among the rows of brightly packaged pills and ointments. I quickened my pace as I headed to grab milk and eggs, eager to get through checkout and back to the safety of my car. But nearing the dairy case, the flickering overhead lights gave me pause. That's when I spotted a tall male figure at the end of my aisle, half obscured in shadow. He appeared focused on me, unmoving as I nervously grabbed a gallon of milk. My hands shook as I made my way to the self-checkout, constantly glancing over my shoulder. Each time I looked back, I could still spot the outline of him looming in the distance. He didn't seem to have a cart or any items at all. He was just there, watching me. At checkout, I fumbled with the scanner, eager to pay and flee the store. But as I tried paying with my card, an error message popped up. I tried re-swiping again and again to no avail. The machine beeped angrily at each failed attempt. With dread, I turned and saw the man was now standing close behind me in line. Too close. Too close. His face was obscured by a hoodie pulled up over his head. I abandoned my groceries and rushed for the exit. Once outside, I began scanning the mostly empty parking lot, hoping I could make it to my car safely. That's when I spotted him emerging from the store, walking straight toward me. I ran to my car, clicking the unlock button on my key fob. As I grabbed for the handle, he appeared directly behind me, trying to grab my arm through the window. I jerked away, heart pounding out of my chest. Tires squealing, I peel out of the parking lot and onto the main road. Checking the rearview mirror, I didn't see any sign of him following me on foot or in a vehicle. Still shaken, I drove well above the speed limit the whole way home, constantly checking all around me for any trace of him. I threw the deadbolt and chain lock as soon as I got inside my apartment, racing to turn on all the lights. I kept envisioning his faceless figure lurking right outside my door, still pursuing me. Sleep did not come easy that night, or any night since. I'm still haunted by the memory of those heavy footfalls tracking me in the store, the shadowy form always on the periphery, biding his time before deciding to make me his prey. I used to think of Walmart as an ordinary place to quickly grab necessities at all hours. Now it symbolizes terror and danger in my mind. I have not been able to set foot in there alone again after dark. The fear of once again sensing that ominous presence just out of sight, but drawing ever closer, still lingers long after I escaped that night. The ordinary turned sinister in the matter of moments, and I cannot help glancing over my shoulder when walking alone at night, gripped by the fear he is still lurking there, somewhere in the shadows, just watching and waiting for his next opportunity to follow his chosen target again. That helpless, hunted feeling was the most frightening thing I've ever experienced. And though I escaped unharmed, the trauma of being someone's prey still haunts my thoughts in the late hours of the night. It was a busy Saturday afternoon when I decided to stop by my local Walmart to pick up a few groceries. As I grabbed a cart and headed inside, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Families pushed overflowing carts up and down the aisles, and peppy pop music played overhead. Just another typical weekend shopping trip, or so I thought. I was halfway down the cereal aisle, comparing prices on different boxes, when I first noticed him. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of a disheveled-looking man watching me intently from the pharmacy section. He didn't seem to be actually shopping, just sort of hovering near the aisles. His gaze fixed on me. I felt a prickle of unease, but chalked it up to paranoia. Just another shopper zoning out, I told myself. Still, I couldn't fully shake the uneasy feeling as I continued down my list. In the produce section, I lingered over the avocados, assessing their ripeness. When I glanced up, I spotted him again at the far end of the displays. Even from that distance, his stare seemed to burn right through me. A chill went down my spine despite the warm store. Casually, I turned my cart down a different aisle, keeping my head down. But soon that prickly feeling on the back of my neck returned. Slowly, I looked over one shoulder, and there he was, lurking just one aisle over. Our eyes met, and I shuddered at the flat, emotionless gaze. Now I knew I wasn't imagining things. This man was definitely following me. Keeping my motions casual, I abandoned my cart and headed swiftly for the front of the store. A quick glance backwards showed the man trailing several yards behind, hands shoved in pockets. He didn't seem rushed, but maintained a steady, deliberate pace, clearing focused on my retreating figure. My pulse pounded as I speed-walked through the apparel section, dodging racks of clothing without really seeing them. Who was this guy? What did he want from me? I just had to make it to customer service, where there were people and cameras. Surely he wouldn't try anything there. The man had quickened his stride, matching my pace. I broke into a panicked half-jog, elbowing past confused shoppers. Terror seized me as I imagined a claw-like hand grabbing my shoulder at any moment. Just a few more feet. I practically crashed into the customer service desk, chest heaving. The bored associate raised her eyebrows in surprise as I glanced desperately over my shoulder. To my immense relief, the man was nowhere in sight. Warily, I scanned each aisle and display. He must have given up once I reached a crowded area. Shakily, I explained the situation to the associate, who notified security as they escorted me outside. I kept expecting that eerie face to loom out of the shadows, but apparently he had slunk away, finding easier prey. Though I felt a lingering sense of dread, I wrote the whole creepy encounter off as a freak one-time thing. Over the next week, I avoided Walmart, reluctant to tempt fate again. But we were out of coffee, so, against my better judgment, I reluctantly headed to the store early one weekday morning. At that hour, the store was nearly deserted. Keeping my hood up and head low, I hurried straight to the coffee aisle and grabbed a container. As I turned towards the registers, a now familiar figure appeared at the end of the aisle. My blood turned to ice. It was him. Immediately, I abandoned the coffee and raced to the front, ignoring his hurried footsteps behind me. I burst through the automatic doors into damp gray morning air. In the mostly empty lot, a single old pickup truck sat nearby. I made a beeline for it as I fumbled for my keys with trembling hands. The man emerged from the store and angled towards me, face grim. Tires squealing, I tore out of the lot, watching him grow smaller in my rearview mirror until the Walmart vanished from sight completely. My mind reeled in shock. How had he found me again? It was like I was being hunted. After that, I became borderline agoraphobic. Trips outside were limited to quick essential errands close to home. I found myself endlessly scanning cars and faces for any sign of the man. Occasional late-night footsteps outside my apartment made me freeze in fear. A couple weeks passed without incident. Though always vigilant, my paranoia began to subside. So on one sunny morning, I let my guard down and decided to walk to a nearby coffee shop, enjoying the fresh air. As I strolled down the tree-lined sidewalk, a pickup screeched to a halt in the street alongside me. My veins turned to ice as the familiar disheveled face glared out the driver's side window. The truck pursued me, keeping pace as I wove between parked cars and dashed through yards. By some miracle, I reached my apartment and slammed the lobby door seconds before the pickup came screeching around the corner. I collapsed against the wall, shaking and sobbing as the truck prowled past outside, its occupant's malign gaze seeming to penetrate the brick itself. That night I hardly slept, envisioning the man lurking outside my window, waiting to grab me if I let down my guard. Was there no escape from this predator who always seemed to sniff me out? How long could I live like a hunted animal in my own home? The next evening, a thunderstorm raged outside. As lightning flashed, I thought I saw a face look in at me from my darkened backyard before vanishing. Terrified, I called the police, who found no sign of an intruder on the premises. Just stay inside and keep your doors locked, they advised before driving off. But we both knew locked doors wouldn't keep this monster away for long. Over the next week, I descended into a panicked delirium. I hardly ate or slept, too afraid to leave my apartment, even in daylight. Any unexpected sound made me cringe in fear that he had finally come for me. Soon, staying here would not be an option. I had to disappear completely. I waited until 3 a.m. on a moonless night when my apartment complex was silent as a graveyard. Keeping all my lights off, I crept downstairs with just a single suitcase. The rain-soaked parking lot was abandoned, but I still felt unseen eyes tracking me as I loaded up my old sedan. I drove straight out of the city and didn't stop until I reached the next state over. Exhausted and afraid, I got a cheap motel room for the night. As I drifted off into a fitful sleep, I knew deep down this still wasn't far enough. The hunted can never escape the hunter. He would follow me to the ends of the earth if needed, appearing when I least expected it. Sooner or later, he would have me in his grasp, and I would look into those empty eyes again as the light faded from my own. I've been working at Walmart for 3 years now, and I hate it. The pay is low, the hours are long, and the customers are rude. But I have no choice. I need this job to pay my bills and support my family. One night, I was assigned to work the graveyard shift with 2 other employees, Mike and Lisa. Mike was a friendly guy who always cracked jokes and made me laugh. Lisa was a quiet girl who kept to herself and rarely spoke. We were supposed to stock the shelves, clean the aisles, and prepare for the next day. The night started off normally. We clocked in at 10 p.m., grabbed our carts, and headed to our assigned sections. I was in charge of the electronics department. Mike was in charge of the grocery department, and Lisa was in charge of the clothing department. As I was putting some DVDs on the shelves, I heard a loud bang from somewhere in the store. It sounded like a gunshot or an explosion. I dropped the DVDs and ran towards the source of the noise. Mike and Lisa were already there, looking at a huge hole in the wall. "What the hell was that?" Mike asked. "I don't know, man," I said. "It looks like something crashed into the store." We approached the hole cautiously, wondering what could have caused it. We saw a black SUV with tinted windows smashed into the wall. The engine was still running, but there was no sign of the driver or any passengers. "Should we call the cops?" Lisa asked. "Maybe we should check it out first," Mike said. "Maybe there's someone inside who needs help." He walked towards the SUV, reaching for the door handle. Before he could open it, the door flew open by itself, and a man stepped out. He was wearing a black suit, sunglasses, and an earpiece. He had a gun in his hand. "Who are you?" Mike asked. The man didn't answer. He just pointed his gun at Mike and pulled the trigger. "Mike," I shouted. I saw Mike fall to the ground, blood spilling from his chest. The man then turned his gun towards me and Lisa. "Run," I yelled. I grabbed Lisa's hand and ran away from the man. We heard more shots behind us, but we didn't look back. We ran towards the exit, hoping to escape. But when we reached the doors, we realized they were locked. We tried to push them open, but they wouldn't budge. "What do we do?" Lisa asked. "We have to find another way out," I said. We looked around, trying to find an alternative exit. We saw a fire exit sign above a door on the other side of the store. "Let's go there," I said. We ran towards the fire exit, hoping it would be unlocked. As we ran, we saw more men in black suits coming out of the SUV. They had guns too, and they were shooting at us. We dodged their bullets as best as we could, hiding behind shelves and displays. We saw other employees who were working that night, lying dead on the floor. They had been caught in the crossfire. We reached the fire exit and tried to open it. It was locked too. Damn it, I cursed. We looked for something to break the door with. We saw a fire extinguisher on the wall. Grab that, I told Lisa. She took the fire extinguisher and smashed it against the door handle. It broke off, and we pushed the door open. We ran outside, hoping to find safety. But what we saw outside was worse than what we saw inside. There were more men in black suits outside, surrounding the store. They had cars, helicopters, and tanks. They had weapons of all kinds. Guns, grenades, rockets, flamethrowers. They saw us coming out of the fire exit and aimed their weapons at us. "Stop right there," one of them shouted. We stopped in our tracks, frozen with fear. "What do you want from us?" I asked. The man who shouted at us walked towards us, slowly. He took off his sunglasses and looked at us with cold eyes. He smiled wickedly and said, "We want you." He raised his gun and shot us both in the head. I never thought working at Walmart would be so dangerous, but I learned the hard way that it was. It all started when I got hired as a security guard for the night shift. I thought it would be an easy job, just watching the cameras and making sure no one broke in or stole anything. I was wrong. The first night, I met my supervisor, Dave. He was an old man who had been working at Walmart for over 20 years. He showed me around the store, pointing out the exits, the emergency phones, and the security office. He also told me some rules that I had to follow. Rule number 1, he said, never go into the basement. That's where we keep the old and damaged merchandise. It's off limits to everyone, even us. Why? I asked. Because it's haunted, he said. Haunted, I repeated, skeptically. Yeah, haunted, he said. There have been reports of strange noises, voices, and sightings down there. Some people say they've seen ghosts, demons, and even monsters. Some people say they've never come back. Come on, Dave, I said. You're pulling my leg, right? No, I'm serious, he said. Trust me, you don't want to go down there. It's not worth it. Okay, I said. I won't go down there. Good, he said. I won't go down there. Good, he said. Rule number 2. Never open the back door after midnight. That's when the deliveries come in. What's wrong with the deliveries? I asked. Nothing's wrong with the deliveries, he said. It's what comes with them that's the problem. What do you mean? I asked. I mean that sometimes we get more than just boxes and crates, he said. Sometimes we get things that are alive. I repeated. Yeah, alive, he said. Things that shouldn't exist. Things that are dangerous. Things that want to kill us. Like what? I asked. Like what? I asked. Like animals, mutants, aliens, you name it, he said. They come from all over the world, smuggled in by some shady organization that we don't know anything about. They use Walmart as a cover to distribute their experiments and weapons. That sounds crazy, I said. It is crazy, he said, but it's true. That's why we have to lock the back door after midnight and never open it until morning. If we do, we risk letting them out and causing a massacre. Okay, I said. I won't open the back door after midnight. Good, he said. Rule number 3. Never trust anyone who works here. Not even me. Why not? I asked. Because some of them are not who they seem, he said. Some of them are spies, traitors, or imposters. Some of them work for the organization that sends us those things. Some of them are those things in disguise. How can you tell? I asked. You can't, he said. That's why you have to be careful who you talk to, who you trust, and who you follow. You never know who might stab you in the back or bite you in the neck. Okay, I said. I won't trust anyone who works here. Good, he said. Those are the 3 main rules that you have to follow if you want to survive working at Walmart. Do you understand? Yes, Dave, I said. Do you believe me? He asked. Yes, Dave, I lied. He nodded and smiled. Good, he said. Then you're ready to start your shift. He handed me a walkie-talkie and a flashlight. If you need anything, just call me on this, he said. I'll be in the security office most of the time, but sometimes I have to do rounds around the store. Okay, I said. And remember, he said, follow the rules. He left me alone in the dark store. I looked around and shook my head. This guy was nuts. There was no way any of his stories were true. He was was just trying to scare me or mess with me. There was nothing to be afraid of at Walmart. It was just a store. A boring store. A boring store. I decided to ignore his rules and do whatever I wanted. That was my first mistake. And my last one.